Innovation by entrepreneurs and their passion to make the world a better place has given us virtually everything. The promise of technology does not just drive entrepreneurship, but also helps solve some of the world's big problems like poverty, climate change, pollution, and others. There can be great synergy between entrepreneurship and doing good if technology is deployed for the right objectives. Besides smart regulation and innovation in education, the emphasis for a better future should be to encourage ordinary people to dream up big businesses and keep the entrepreneurial spirit alive.
There are several ways I believe, and professionally we believe that governments can actually help in solving so many of our national issues using technology. It starts and begins with policy making in the first place. If the federal and state governments can actually, play their roles in policy formation as regards helping the people to overcome certain costs, we believe that technology will solve most of our problems. It's already actually doing so in some areas, but it's not achieving the required mileage. Take for instance the fiber optic infrastructure companies. I believe quite well that if government would support them, the right of way will be less of an issue, and they will be able to deploy all of this infrastructure, and people can actually benefit from them as much as possible.
You mentioned this issue of right of way, and this issue has been on for like forever. How do we solve it once and for all? We're talking about 2019 here.
Yeah, I believe the reason why we can't solve this issue is because of the greed of the government of the day. They would want to make money from everything they can lay their hands on, but it's painful that they're not being creative about this. They are not looking at the fact that if they do not take the fees that comes from the right of way, if they do not take that fees and they allow this to actually happen, of course, with some high level control in terms of deployment, and they actually map out where they want this infrastructure to go, we believe that this can actually make the necessary impact. The monies they are getting from or they are looking at getting from the right of way can actually be getting out of the usage the populace actually do, how they use the technology in the long run, how they use the internet to solve their problems. Today, people are paying through their noses for data subscriptions and all of that. And why they're doing that is not just for the fun of it. They are doing that so that they can actually be productive in one way or the other. So I sincerely believe that if government should take that out of place and out of the way, and internet is actually deployed across several states and local governments, we believe that people can adopt this thing, and even education will become a lot better, and literacy levels also will improve.
So Adebi, let's get down to specifics. If you take, say, two industries, say healthcare and maybe education, what are some of the specific ways that you believe that technology can at least change the face of these industries in the country today?
Fortunately, we've been able to actually, deploy some level of technology across these two sectors we've talked about, health and education, and we've been able to measure impact over time and seen how it's actually improved the way they do things, and in terms of their efficiency and productivity as well.
What do you regard as the greatest enabler that will help us advance the growth of technology in the country?
Now, looking generally at what we're doing today, what I seriously think, and I will keep going back to it, is still government policy. It's going to be a massive, if government is able to actually do certain things.
How about education?
Education is good, but education still comes from some level of policy making as well. Because if you look at education today, education functions more from the private sector rather than from the public sector. So in terms of the public sector, how do you place children who are not, or young ones who are not able to get the opportunities that so many other people who are getting the opportunity in the private sector are doing? A whole lot of young people actually want to do much more, but they lack the exposure, and exposure comes at a cost. All right, if they do not have the financial capability to basically get themselves exposed, they cannot actually have the exposure. In terms of education as well, they would need a minimal level of funding or of some kind of financial capability to be able to, attain that. And it doesn't just come easily like that.
Yeah, but do you think that the curriculum that we teach our students today can prepare them for the digital future of tomorrow?
I would say no. I would say no, because we need to actually rejig our curriculum. We need to revamp it totally, completely, and we need to do quite a lot. If you look at our education sector, you would see that at the early stage education, early years education is actually very, very impressive. Children go from early years education, which encompasses the nursery education, to the primary education and secondary education. Most of the time, you will see when most children actually leave the secondary school education, they are on their way out of this country because of the fact that the curriculum that is at the higher level, which are the universities and polytechnics, as the case may be, do not basically meet up with the requirements of their future jobs and all of that. So I sincerely believe that we would need to actually rejig our education at the higher institution level.
Finally, we live in a world of robotics, artificial intelligence, big data, machine learning, and lots of other disruptive technologies. What is that one technology that you think Nigeria should focus on that will make a difference in the next 5 years?
Basically, I consider the internet technology as the basic thing we need to embrace. We need to take advantage of it. We need to improve on penetration. We need to ensure that it's accessible to everyone at the least cost possible. And one of the projects that we're working on in one of our programs is an education project. Now, the education project, we've come to find out that a whole lot can actually happen with young ones when they actually come in touch with education. Some of them are beginning to see certain things online, all right, very positive things, and they are able to practicalize it in areas of robotics as well. They've been able to put together one thing or the other, piece together different elements, and they've been able to come out with very, very impressive results. So I believe that the internet technology is something that should go around, and it should actually, go from the north to the south of the country, to the east to the west. I believe strongly that it should be something that the government needs to make very available.
Great chatting with you today. Wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
That was Adebiyi Oke, Programs Director, Silicon Base, who is of the opinion that a lot more needs to be done to support the growth of technology in Nigeria. Stakeholders are also clamoring for improved funding for the sector, as well as tax holidays for certain categories of businesses in the industry, particularly startups. If you ask me, I think a lot more needs to be done to ensure that Nigeria also plays the game of technology productively and not just as a tech-consuming nation. That's our show for today. Please follow us on social media. And don't forget, you can watch the entire show on the Channels TV YouTube account or via cfablog.ng. For Tech Trends, I'm Chukwemeka Agbata.